teachers, what was the best smartass response from a student you have heard? Back when I taught first grade, we were doing a writing assignment about Thanksgiving. The kids had to draw a picture of their family celebrating Thanksgiving, and then write about it. One little girl drew the table and chairs, and that was all. I knew she just didn't feel like doing the work, so I tried to prompt her. I asked where the food and her family were, and she snapped right back with, "They're washing the dishes." Had to give her credit for coming up with a logical argument for not doing the work. Not a teacher but witnessed as a student. There was literally 30 seconds left of class and my buddy starts to pack up. The teacher didn't seem to mind, but when the bell rang and buddy got up to leave, the teacher said the classic line, "The bell doesn't dismiss you, I do," and buddy just continues to leave. Gets in the doorway of the class and says, "If it decides when I come, it decides when I leave," and just leaves the class. The hero we need. My grandson, who lives with my wife and I, was sent to office one day for breaking dress code. No belt. The principal asked why he didn't wear it, to which he replied, "My crackhead mother stole it and I didn't have time to get another." Principal got super mad and called us to tell us what happened, and what he had said. I confirmed his story. Well, his crack addict mother came to visit last night and we didn't realize it was gone until this morning. I could audibly hear him gasp over the phone and immediately started apologizing, and every time I see him now he mentions it and apologizes. I was doing poorly in a middle school class on account of my mother having terminal brain cancer. This one teacher would constantly get on my case even though he knew about the situation. I wasn't a bad student, I was just severely distracted from the situation at home and couldn't always focus. I missed 2 days of school due to her worsening condition. The day before she died, he left a voicemail at my house explaining my 5 missing homework assignments, but no one really cared. I didn't go to school for a week after her death, and when I returned I said to him, "Well, now that she's dead I can finally finish those assignments, right?" I think he finally understood. The principal gave him a good chewing out too. Tangentially related, smartass response from teacher on behalf of the student. Had a student that came back a couple of weeks out of class. Counselor let the teachers know that his father had passed and he was having a rough time. I pulled him aside after class one day, told him not to worry about any of the work he missed. Focus on getting caught up in your other classes. I'll make things work out here. I was his 10th grade English teacher. We had already taken the end-of-year exam. As far as the state was concerned, he was done, and that was good enough for me. Kid was straight A's until his dad passed. Cut to a few weeks later, I'm called into the counselor's office for a meeting with the student's other teachers. I double-check and he's been doing great in class, and work I've assigned has been turned in on time, even though I told him he didn't have to. So I have no idea what's going on. Come to find out, his other teachers weren't as lenient on the makeup work as I was. He had gotten behind in all his other classes and had stayed behind. Now he was in danger of failing everything but my class. He'd have to repeat the year save for English. Counselor asks me what I did to help the student. Oh, well, I told him not to worry about anything he missed, and that as far as I was concerned he was already caught up and he could do his best in class going forward. One of the other teachers balked. "I don't see why we needed Mr. Hexdragon's input. He just let the kids skip out on work." "That's not helpful," I replied. "The kid's dad just fucking died. You really think the last 6 weeks worth of history matters to him in the slightest?" The counselor smiled and pointed at me. "I invited Mr. Hexdragon because I knew he would say some things I'm not allowed to say. My mother was an English teacher. She taught high school for most of my life, and in 2007 it was finally time for her to be my teacher. It wasn't weird. She was great at not making it awkward, and I was never a bad student. In between semesters, she unexpectedly passed away. Those days seem like a blur to me now. We were on vacation on US NYC, and she was just gone. After the funeral back in the city she was born, we came back to our hometown and I went back to school to begin the new semester where she was supposed to be my teacher again but wasn't. I will always remember that my classmates and most of my teachers gave me so much support, most of it just silent, just letting small things I missed go by. Except for this one teacher. Classes had already started and when I was out of town on the funeral I missed the deadline for buying the textbooks. I missed a homework for this teacher because you needed to fill out the textbook and deliver it and I couldn't. He did not give a crap and made me stay extra hours after school. First time in 4 semesters I stayed after hours punished, and took several points off my grade in multiple occasions for not having the textbook. My point is, from someone that was in a similar position as that student, thanks for being an exemplar human being. Had my class of working class kids at an art gallery. As we waited for art to begin we played on the small playground near the door. A prep school kid in a uniform approached 2 of my boys and said, "I bet I'm smarter than you are." I watched to make sure no blood was drawn. My students can hold their own pretty much anywhere and they don't accept insults casually. But they were cool. "No you're not. Are you in grade 2? The boy said he was and one of my boys said, "So then we're all grade 2. So we are all grade 2 smart." He went back to climbing the monkey bars. But the prep school kid continued, "I know I'm smarter. Let's do some math and I'll prove it." The toughest kid in my room looked this guy square inches the eye and said, "Well, I'm smart enough not to do math when I'm having fun on a playground." My history teacher would spend half the class making jokes directed at the students. One student in particular always took the jokes on the chin and never really made any comebacks. Eventually, the teacher called him out and jokingly lectured him about standing up for himself. He ended his rant with, "You've got to be a man. You've got to be like me." The student replied with, "Well, which one? Do you want me to be a man or do you want me to be like you?" Edit, for those wondering, this happened back when I was in high school in the late 80s. It's one of those moments I will never, ever forget. D. In HSR functions and relations teacher would always start to say something, forget it and say, "I lost my train of thought." Well, one day a buddy of mine replies, "It's okay sir, there were no important passengers on board." Edit, for those who are asking, functions and relations is a subset of finite math. Think of an entire course on the quadratic equation and its various offshoots. To turn the question around, I was in class once and one of the students said, "Wait, I had a thought." And my teacher responded, "Was it lonely?" I'm not a teacher, but I had a friend in school who was always pretty dramatic. She actually did have IBS though. So we're in this bitchy teacher's class and she keeps asking to use the bathroom. The teacher says no. My friend's like, "I have IBS though." And the teacher is like, "Tell me what those initials mean and I will let you go." So she screams, "IT means I have to shit," and takes off out of the room. Student A says to student B, "Dude, shut the fuck up." Staff says, "Student A, we don't talk that way. In the future find a more appropriate way of expressing yourself." Student A says to staff, "Oh, sorry," then turns to student B and says, "Dude, would you please shut the fuck up?" Not a teacher, but witnessed as student. We had a substitute who was leafing through the yearbook and got to the senior superlatives. Our school mascot was the Eagles. She started reading some if then aloud and said, "Oh, that's nice, Sarah." Most school-spirited a student answered back, "Yeah, because she's always spread eagle." The substitute couldn't keep from laughing, as much as she tried not to. Let me point out that I'm female since people will assume I'm a guy. I taught in an inner city school. We were talking about prime numbers, so I would have kids give me a number and we'd work out if the number was a prime number on the board. One kid wasn't paying attention, so me being a young teacher I thought I'd catch him off guard and call on him. It went something along the lines of, "Mark, do you have a number? I need your number." She it, play it cool, girl. We can talk after class. The whole room lost their shit and I turned red from embarrassment. They then laughed at how red I got. then laughed at how red I got. This is one of my only complaints about being white. Everyone can tell if I'm embarrassed and all my non-white friends think it's hilarious.